What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! Time to introduce a massive guest to the Halftime Snacks. Today we have a man who played 4 years of professional baseball in the Chicago White Sox, and then right after the bat, and no pun intended, right after the bat, he jumped into the world of entrepreneurship. He founded a company, and then he founded another company, which we're going to be talking about a lot today, named Haste Arcade. Haste is really the world's first instant leaderboard payout system, enabling gamers to get paid for their high scores on virtually any game. The platform also features a software developer kit. This might sound so complicated for you guys, but we're going to get into all of this. It includes a software developer kit for game developers that wish to add these new incentive mechanisms to their new or existing games. Man, this episode is going to be filled with so many takeaways on crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, and everything in between. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the one and only Joe, the Pinto. How you doing, Joe? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks.
Oh, great. Thanks, Ronan. That was an awesome intro. You nailed it. You got all of it. You're hired.
That's awesome. Man, right off the bat, as I said, you jumped into the world of entrepreneurship, and now you're in the whole world of blockchain, which is a new and emerging area. Going to get into all of that. Right before that, we always kick it off with the fun icebreaker. The one I have for you, which is similar to the one I have for previous professional players that I hosted on the show, is that I want to know what song or artist you used to hear right before games to get you all hyped up and pumped.
Oh, man. So I used to be kind of into like hip hop and whatnot. I'm from Los Angeles, but most of the teams I was playing on in the minor leagues were like in southern states. And so they would play like country music. So I'd be like listening to hip hop or whatever, getting all psyched in the clubhouse. And then we go out onto the field for warm-ups and it's like really slow, like country music, just like, kind of a little bit of a downer. But yeah, we had quite a bit of all that stuff.
That's awesome. And how exactly did you got into sports? Like when exactly did you decide to have like a professional baseball career, or how did that look like?
Yeah, I guess when I was a little kid, I did like most kids, played baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever, did some music lessons. And I was never like the biggest kid, but I really enjoyed baseball for some reason. Thinking back, I can't even remember why, but it just kind of, stuck with it. I definitely worked really hard. And in high school, I kind of realized, there's an opportunity for me to possibly go to college and do this. And I did get that chance. And, in college, again, worked really hard, did well. And, there's a chance where I could possibly even play professionally. And as a little kid, like that's what you dream of. So I got that chance. I got drafted out of college. I never made it to the major leagues, unfortunately. The highest I got was AA, the Birmingham Barons out in Alabama. But still, unbelievable experience. I met my current business partner through it. And I mean, the places I've traveled because of it, it's something I wouldn't give up for anything. It was really, really cool.
And I'm curious to ask you, because I feel like, professional or semi-professional players, they always have this thing. They always carry this, like, it's not, I don't know if it's like the chip in the shoulder or this like specific mindset that you can only acquire at that level. But I wonder if there are some like lessons or specific like things you learned throughout your career on sports that you use and that you're very certain that you got them there. You use them today in business and entrepreneurship.
Dude, I'm gonna need you as like my hype man when I walk into the club, just like giving all this insight on me. But yeah, I don't know if it's specific to athletes or whatnot, but I do feel like, the competitive nature of the things that I did in baseball and the level of training, the level of sacrifice and commitments that you had to have to get to those highest levels. Once that career ends and you get into the working world, if you're starting your own company, it's the exact same grind. And that's something that my co-founder, Dan, Wagner and I, we talk about a lot is, baseball prepared us for this, whether it was, having to be at the weight room at 5 o'clock in the morning while everybody else is hungover from partying the night before, because they don't have to go to practice or anything like that. It just teaches you this kind of grind mentality where, you just have to figure out a way to get it done. You have to be willing to put in, hours that some people might not be willing to put in. And I think that translated really well into the first venture that Dan and I started, which is called BarPay. It has to do with like mobile order and payments and digital menus for bars and restaurants. We started that back in 2015 and it's still going today. But then again, this new venture Haste and everything we're doing with blockchain, it definitely translates into, the startup mentality of whatever it takes, got to get it done. There is no set schedule of when you show up to the office and when you leave. It's just, man, there's a list of a million things to do. We got to knock off as many of these as we can today and see what, happens tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think that something that you guys did, you and your partner, which is something that many professional players struggle with, is what do they do right after their careers, right? Like they finish, probably not getting paid anymore by the teams or whatever, and they're left out there and they don't really know what to do. You actually, you jumped into business immediately and started BarPay, as you mentioned. When exactly did you thought about Haste Arcade, which is what I want to cover now? When was the first time it crossed your mind that this is something that there's a value gap that needs to have this company that fixes that value gap, or that feels this need or this pain? When was exactly the first moment that you thought about it?
Specifically, you could say it was January 4th, 2021 was when the actual Haste idea was born. But I think even going back further than that, Dan and I were roommates in baseball, and we both kind of shared the same mentality of what you were talking about, after sports, what's next? We both knew that we didn't want to stay in baseball, if we didn't make it to the major leagues, because, in the minor leagues, you don't make any money. You're making like $900 a month. And if you become a coach or a scout or whatever, it wasn't really the lifestyle that we wanted. We also knew that we kind of wanted to work for ourselves and didn't really want to do the corporate ladder thing. So we were talking about ideas as roommates. Obviously we launched BarPay, but then through BarPay, we learned a lot about credit card processing fees. And like I said, that was back in 2015. Well, while we were researching this stuff, we came across this thing called Bitcoin. And this is even back in 2014. 2015 was when BarPay officially launched, but 2014 was when we started plotting it out. So we're learning about this Bitcoin thing where you're getting payments that are, fractions of a cent now instead of 2 to 4%, which is a typical credit card payment, where it's man, we should incorporate this into this idea. That could be something really cool that no one in the industry has seen before. So that kind of piqued our interest. It wasn't about, at the time, oh, let's invest in this and get rich. It was just wow, this is an amazing technology that, apparently nobody really knows about. What if we could incorporate this? And so over the years, we kept following it. We kept watching it. We saw what started to happen as the price started to go up. And we remember in 2017 when you had all those ICOs, the initial coin offerings, and people were raising 20 million bucks on an idea and then just rug pulling and taking people's money. And we're just what is going on with this industry? This is completely different than the original technology we saw. And that kind of grew into frustration where we saw this thing that, like we said, was supposed to be about extremely fast transactions and low fees. Kind of the narrative changed once the mainstream got a hold of it, and it turned into this thing of, digital gold, and you invest in it and the price goes up. And that was never what was appealing to us at first. And so as we saw this continue to play out, we're just man, I feel like people aren't getting it. This isn't what Bitcoin is. If you want to invest and make money, that's great. But the actual Bitcoin that we originally fell in love with was something that you could use and spend really small amounts of. You didn't have to be a multi-millionaire to create an NFT or something like that. And so it was through that in January, we were sitting in the office one night and we're just talking back and forth. It's dude, people aren't getting it. What can we do to show people what the original purpose and what you can actually do with this technology? Because one of the questions I would always get is people, they'd known I'd been, talking about Bitcoin since 2014 or 2015 to my friends. And at first they don't listen. And then 3 years later, they're I just don't get it. And I was at that point, I didn't get it either. Why is this thing that, is expensive and slow now? Why is it going up in value? The thing that I thought was cool was the fast, cheap thing. And so we decided, okay, we can do something to show people what the original purpose of this technology was, at least in our opinion. And so we built this little game, and the idea just came from, if I had a quarter, using the original Bitcoin protocol, which is currently available. It's a blockchain called Bitcoin SV, BSV, which follows the Bitcoin white paper. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's the original document that Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that may be, wrote describing an electronic peer-to-peer cash. And that's the title of the paper. You will not find the word digital gold anywhere in this paper. So we were like, how can we take this quarter and show electronic peer-to-peer cash? We know that we can break it up into 100 or 1,000 different pieces and send it to 1,000 of our friends or 100 of our friends all at the same time. So Dan, props to him. He taught himself how to program about 2 or 3 years ago. He was messing around on this programming site, and he was basically like, okay, I've built out the structure of how we can split this thing and send it to our friends. Now, what's the mechanism going to be? And we're just like, well, what's the simplest thing we could think of? And it was just like, you tap a button on a screen as fast as you can, and basically you compare how fast you tap it to your friends. So what we ended up doing was building a leaderboard to keep track of that stuff. So the original concept for Haste was, you pay a penny or a tenth of a penny or 25 cents or whatever to play this game. And the game went like this. The screen would go completely blank after you'd hit play. And then sometime within 2 or 3 seconds, just a little yellow dot would pop up somewhere on the screen. And the only thing you were trying to do is just tap that dot as fast as you can. And the screen was going to measure how fast you tapped it in milliseconds. So I would play, I tap it, I get 482 milliseconds. I get, number 7 on the leaderboard. Okay. There's 6 people who tapped it faster than me. Well, when I hit play, whatever I spent to play that game, whether it was a penny or 10 cents or whatever, that got split. And that got sent to everybody that was already on that leaderboard. So the person that was in first place, they got, 10% of my penny. The person that was in second place got 8% or 9% or whatever. And it worked its way down gradually. But that was the whole point. It's like, look, this is Bitcoin. Like, go do that with a thing called BTC right now. That's, $40,000 or whatever. You can't do it. Like, the fundamentals have been changed to not allow it to do small payments and fast payments like that. But we built this, and it was, a fun little addicting game. All of a sudden, like, our friend circles are like, just tapping this thing, texting each other like, oh, I just beat your score. Like, haha, you suck, stuff like that. And we're just like, wow, this is really cool. Well, that idea wasn't really, we didn't plan on turning that into anything. We just thought the idea of, sending fractions of a penny around to different people, instantly was really cool. A cool concept. And what we wanted to show people, hey, this is a microtransaction in the real world. Like, this is, it's just, you can see it, like, you can physically see it. And then a couple people, from this one particular BSV blockchain reached out. They're like, hey guys, this is a really cool concept. Have you thought about, doing anything else with it? Are you guys going to make more games? Are you going to, try and get other people to submit games and use this leaderboard structure? And we hadn't really thought about it. Obviously we had BarPay at the time. But an article was written by a VC group about a week after we put this first game out, which really made us think like, wow, there's actually something to this. And what they did was they took the game Flappy Birds. Do you remember that? The thing where you fly? Yeah. So they wrote in this article, in Flappy Bird's heyday, there were roughly like 50 million people playing on a daily basis. And the game developers of Flappy Birds were making about $50,000, $55,000 a day from the ad revenue, right? And so, before you play the game, you see the stupid ad and then you play the game. Well, what we did with our leaderboard payouts was, the same way that the number 1 person on the leaderboard would get 10% of, whoever just played, whoever the game developer was, we created, an output for them as well. So the game developer gets 10% of each gameplay as well. So they took our leaderboard payout structure. They said, if the Flappy Bird game developers would have been using ILP instead of ads to generate revenue, from the 1 penny level, they would have been generating over $2.4 million a day in the 50 million, users per day playing, peak heyday of Flappy Bird. So when we saw that, it was just like, holy smokes, there is like a serious business model here for game developers. And then they also said, the number 1 player in Flappy Birds, instead of just getting, kudos or feeling good, like, wow, I'm the best Flappy Birds player in the world, that's cool, they would have been making from the number 1 leaderboard spot about $200,000 a day from holding that leaderboard spot. So we saw that, we're like, all right, there's definitely something to this. Let's pursue this. Let's see what we can build out. And that's where, you know, the next couple things transpired from.
So I know that you know that there's something that is absolutely disruptive and innovative whenever you go on Wikipedia and there's still not a Wikipedia page explaining what the hell that is. And that happened to me when I went on and did some research on Instant Leaderboard Payout, which is the structure that you're basically explaining. I find it fascinating because with the new technologies, as you were, you know, briefly mentioning before, and what really Bitcoin and the blockchain is all about is being able to use technology to create different dynamics, right? To mix games with payout systems, or to mix, you know, specific, you know, collectibles with a collection with a utility that can only be, you know, represented from something digital to something on live, like on person. But I guess that this is like so new. These concepts that we're discussing are so new that even for me, it's very hard to like understand and even like discuss about it. So I want you to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about what play to earn is out there in the world of blockchain, and how is that different to the payout structure that you guys came up with, Instant Leaderboard Payout? How they are different from each other, like, or how are they similar? If you could share more information on what games can it support, or what games is not that for, like, tell us a little bit more like the framing around play to earn and how ILP lands in that framing.
Sure. So I'm still somewhat of a noob, I think is what maybe the gaming community would call me, in terms of, you know, I wasn't a huge gamer per se. I played like FIFA back in the day. I love that game. But in essence, like, as I've gone through this process, as we've learned about the gaming industry in general, play to earn, as it, you know, kind of is right now, or the more common play to earn, is that you can, you know, you don't necessarily have to pay anything. You can start playing, you can like build up your character. And then, you know, what's going to start happening with NFTs is you'll be able to like sell your character as you increase their attributes. But what also started getting introduced was the notion of like purchasing in-game power-ups. So me personally, let's say we're playing FIFA. I might not be that good. You might be a lot better than me just at face value. But maybe I go and buy the Cristiano Ronaldo cleats, and now all of a sudden, you know, my players that are wearing them have a +5 speed increase. So I all of a sudden have an advantage over you, maybe because I can afford those cleats and you can't. And that's kind of what has started to happen in the gaming industry. And a lot of gamers will tell you they're frustrated with the whole quote unquote play to earn thing, because it's really turned more into like pay to win, where the people with the most capital can afford, you know, the best upgrades, make their characters better than people who couldn't afford that. So you might be more skilled than me, but because I can spend more money and make my player better just through buying stuff, I'm going to have an advantage over you when we play these games. Mm-hmm. Well, with Haste and the games that are in the arcade, like that wasn't what we were trying to go to. What we were trying to do is just say, you know, this is skill based. Like the best people are going to get the best rewards. And so like our play to earn structure is, and this is a crypto term, it's proof of work. The more you play our games, the better you should get at them, so you can improve your skill with practice. And that's going to give you a better chance to get on a leaderboard, and which obviously if you're on a leaderboard, you're going to start earning from being on that position. And I guess to address something else you said about the instant leaderboard payouts, I didn't know there wasn't a Wikipedia page yet. That doesn't surprise me, because literally, to my knowledge, we invented it. And the only reason we were even able to do that was because of blockchain, and very specifically the BSV blockchain. And the reason that this thing came about was because you could do those really small payments instantly. That's the notion of the instant leaderboard payout. So what I mean by that is, you have your Bitcoin wallet, one that we use. You have to have one of these in the arcade if you want instant leaderboard payouts. It's called Hand Cash. And if you want to go download Hand Cash, my referral is Joey D, Joeyd. Just kidding about that. Not really. But anyways, Hand Cash has these notifications, right? So every time you get a payment, you'll get a ping. So it's like, ping, you know, you just received 0.01 cents from so-and-so. Well, the notion of Bitcoin and how Bitcoin was supposed to work, as defined in the white paper, is you do get like the transactions instantly. So we call it instant leaderboard payouts just because as soon as someone hits start game, so they're sending their payment in, they're sending their quarter in. Literally, as soon as the quarter goes in, it's broken down. And this happens, within a split second, broken down 100 different ways and sent to 100 different people that are already on that leaderboard. So if you're on leaderboard, you're getting an instant payout every time someone else plays after you. And it's really cool. Like you make one of these leaderboards when there's a lot of people playing the games, your phone just does not stop buzzing. It's just like ping, here's half a cent, ping, here's a cent, ping, here's half a cent. Like we've had to sometimes like quiet our notifications, as cool as it is to just see money coming in, but it's just like, man, like I can't even sleep. My phone's just going bzz, 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 bzz. And that's what, we think is really cool. And the use case that we wanted to show for Bitcoin and the original protocol. So that's why I think ILPs are something that, could be really cool for the gaming industry, skill-based stuff. The games that we have in the arcade, like I said, are skill-based. Where we want to take this in the future, you're playing a game like Call of Duty and, you have a headshot leaderboard, something like that. Well, now you have ILPs. So whoever's getting the most headshots, they're getting payouts instantly with every game. It could be, plugged into basically most games that are out there as long as they're skill-based.
As long as, of course, I mean, from what I understand, this requires players to actually pay to play. It's a pay to play to earn, right?
Correct. And that's, that's something where people hear that it's like, oh, do I really want to pay to play this game? Well, if you're paying a tenth of a cent to play, do you really feel that? If you're paying even a penny to play, do you really feel that? And then if you are actually really talented, you can pay up to $100 or $200 if you want to play and make one of those leaderboards where you're competing against other people that are basically, paying the same amount to play. So the way that we kind of see it in the future is I'm already gaming. I might as well, risk a penny to see if I make one of these leaderboards and possibly make some money off playing this game.
Yeah, I guess that it's also a matter of essentially changing the perspective of the cost of the game. FIFA is the easiest example because you're paying, I don't know, like $60 or $50
Yep.
to buy the game. And you also need to have the Xbox or the PlayStation, which you also need to pay for. But then there's also games on mobiles that you have to pay through attention, right? You have
Yep.
you mentioned it. There's ads that you have to spend like 15 seconds waiting. Oh man, I want to play 15 seconds. This is so annoying, right? Like YouTube videos. But
Yep.
so as long as like you can focus that attention on what the cost is to the players, if to be like literally this is like less. Like if you monetize your time, probably this would be like cheaper than spending 25 seconds on a YouTube on an ad, right? So it's just also a matter of understanding from a different perspective of what the cost really is.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it. And let's take two of those examples. You got the FIFA example, right? You pay $60 up front and then you can play the game for as long as you want. Well, maybe I don't like FIFA. Maybe I've never played it before. I spend my $60 because everyone's hyping it up. And then it's like, dang, this game just isn't for me. That actually happened to me. There was this game, for some reason, I bought like a, open world. I forget what it was called. It wasn't like Grand Theft Auto. It was trying to be like Grand Theft Auto, but basically I paid my $60 and 2 days after starting, I was just like, this is way too complex. Like there's no way I'm going to get into this. And I literally never played it after that. I was like, dang, I'm out $60. Whereas if I could have played, and this is something about micropayments, you could pay per minute, you could pay per hour, you could pay per day. You can set subscriptions that are, 5 cents per hour if that's how you wanted to do it. It's not like, the mobile apps where you have to pay 99 cents a month and you got to pay that up front, which even that doesn't sound like a lot. But the reason that they can't do it cheaper than that is because of the credit card processing rates. They're not going to process a transaction that's less than $1. It's like if you go to a gas station and, you try to buy something for less than $5 and they say, oh, we add 30 cents to charges for less than that amount. Well, that's because they're trying to cover their credit card processing costs. And that's what we learned through BarPay. So it's like, with these micro payments, you can introduce new business models again for the big games like FIFA. And maybe they're selling themselves short by only charging $60, as a one-time cost. Maybe if it was, you pay 10 cents for every game you play. I mean, I used to play thousands of those games. I got way more value than $60 worth. They would have generated more revenue. And then you've got, the smaller games where it's ad-based. Instead of watching that ad, I get those 5 seconds back in my life. And all I had to do is spend, half of a penny or a penny. Like that's not a big deal to me. And I think that's where the internet in general should go. I don't think a lot of people right now realize that when they're watching these videos or they're scrolling through Instagram, they think it's free, but really it's not. Instagram is taking their data and selling it to advertising companies, and Instagram is making the money. The people that are scrolling aren't making the money, even though they're the products. Like it's right. Backwards. So yeah, I think that, this whole micropayment, pay to play to earn notion, I think that could be something that a lot of people like in the future, because you don't have the advertisements and you don't have the big upfront costs. It's just, if I enjoy this game, I'll keep playing. If I don't, I came out of pocket, 20 cents, big deal.
Yeah. And I also feel like there's tons of positive things around that. Like the whole network effects, right? If all my players are playing it and earning from it, I would want to be there, just because of the social, need to be where everyone is, especially for young kids and people like in high school or college. I feel like that's a very specific niche. And from the side of microtransactions, micropayments that you mentioned, me coming from a financial background and working at the stock exchange, I can say that's going to change everything, because I remember seeing this this app, I don't remember which one, on DeFi, on the decentralized finance, but you can literally see your APY or APR return, your interest that is being generated every second. So you start seeing how exactly you're getting returns from your stake, which you don't really have in traditional finance, right? You put $100,000 in, and you're getting 6%. So you have to go back and do the calculations, how much you're going to get each day, or how much you're going to get each month. So that's I feel like in terms of perspective, as we were discussing, micropayments are going to be really there to not only solve different dynamics, as we were mentioning, between eSports and crypto and other projects, that you're also going to be able to see the benefits instantly. And I think that is underrated. I am with you in that side. Is there any other ways that you see the whole NFT space, which is now very hyped up and probably is going through that same 2007 moment that Bitcoin went through, that you just talked about? How do you see that space really getting incorporated into what you guys are building, or what the mixture of that esports micropayments space can have potential for? What do you see there happening?
I definitely see NFTs becoming a part of daily life. I don't think that it's just meant to be, JPEGs that people are selling for a lot of money, to be honest. I think that, that was a very good use to kind of break the world into NFTs, digital art. That makes a lot of sense. But I think that people are only starting to scratch the surface on what NFTs will actually be. And what I mean by that is this: I think in the future, I would imagine that basically everything is going to be an NFT. So for example, this interview, right? We're on this podcast. You will mint NFTs for specific podcast spots, and people will go and purchase those NFTs. They might not even want to go on, but now I'm like, wow, I know that Halftime Snacks is going to be a really cool podcast. I want to purchase 10 of these spots up front. So you, as the minter, are getting upfront liquidity. I now can hold on to these, and I can either redeem them and use them myself, so I'm getting value out of that, or as this podcast grows in popularity, people are going to be like, wow, the only way to get on this is by owning one of these NFTs. I have to go buy one of them from Joe. Well, now I can sell that NFT for whatever price the market, is dictating. And then you, obviously, for creating it, you're going to get a kickback. You're going to get the royalty for every, second sale. So I think that, people are going to start seeing more and more utility from NFTs, as opposed to just this notion of, you buy them for the clout. So you can say, oh, I own this $1.4 million Ethereum rock, whatever the heck that is. I don't know. But I think that there's going to be a lot of use cases that people, don't realize yet for NFTs. And for example, something that we've done in the arcade, you can mint what's called a player card. So this came from, Dan and my background in baseball. We had our own player cards, and we thought it was cool if gamers would have something similar. So if you mint your own player card, it does a couple things. It has utility to the point where you get early access to new games. So you have more chance to practice ahead of time, get on these leaderboards. But it also, built into the specific NFT, has the ability to send an output of every one of my gameplays. So if I spend 10 cents on a gameplay, 10% of that is going to whoever owns my player card NFT. So if I own it, I'm basically getting a 10% discount. But if I want to sell my player card and someone on the market wants to buy it, they now are going to get 10% of all of my game plays. So I might not be very good at esports. I might not be good at gaming, but I really like this whole concept. I might go buy a bunch of people's player cards, and now I'm getting outputs from these people's gameplays because I hold their player card NFTs. So that has nothing to do with JPEGs, nothing to do with art. That's just utility, where you're seeing an NFT actually used for a real purpose. And so, that's the type of things that we're trying to do with Haste in general is let's show the utility side of blockchain more than just the speculation and, the stuff that people are just kind of hyping, because that's, in our opinion, that was not really the point of Bitcoin originally. So that's kind of what we're focused on.
It's really exciting to see how many new things are being enabled by all this new technology, platforms like yours, Joe. It's been super fascinating to hear and learn from you and from your experiences. I mean that it's so short, right? 2021 January. It's a year and less than a year and a half, and there's already so much. And I know that in a year it's gonna be like probably totally different. But yeah, I mean it sounds super fascinating and exciting. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen. Last question before we go. I always throw in a more personal question to get to know the guests more closely. What's the kindest thing that someone has ever done for you, Joe?
Wow, the kindest thing that someone has ever done for me. I mean, this is definitely not it, but what comes to mind right now is I have some friends out here. I live in Los Angeles and just started surfing a couple of years ago. And that's really like outside of work, the only thing that I think about. And one of my friends one time let me like take this really, really good wave. And it was like one of the best waves of my life. And I still like remember it and can think about it on a daily basis. So I guess in the most recent future or the most recent past, that's what comes to mind. Other than that, I mean, my family in general, like they've been unbelievably supportive to me in anything, and, crazy ideas like wanting to play professional baseball or wanting to start companies. Just my friends and family have always been a really great support system for me. And I probably don't tell them thank you enough, but, in terms of like a specific kind act, I think it's just in general, like what they've done for me my entire life.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.